Welcome to our next episode of the Solo Business and Life. Today I have a guest that I actually don't know how to introduce properly because she has done so many amazing things in her life that I'm going to let her do most of the talking, but let me give you just a few things about her. First of all, she appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Okay? Wow, she was endorsed by Oprah, obviously, by Deepak Chopra, by Louise Hay. She has best-selling book that became bestseller before the era of the internet. And she has been really the authority in the weight loss program, mind mastery, money mastery. Just incredible woman. Her name is Suzy Prudden. And I'm so excited, Suzy, to have you on this show today, to learn more about you and just share you with the world. Welcome.
Thank you. I wish my lighting was better so that you could actually see me because I have to go to wherever it is, Best Buys, and get myself some lights because I think I'm sitting here in shadow and all my lights are on and it's first thing in the morning. There I am.
You can see actually I can see you really well, so it's all good.
Yeah. So it's just my screen, my thingy. Okay, good. Hi, I'm really glad to be here, and I really enjoyed meeting you at the Magnificent You conference and spending time with you. And I didn't get to know you, but I got to experience you. And that's why I'm here, because of that experience.
And thank you so much for being here. I'm truly honored to be able to have you on my show and just speak to you. And Suzy, can you tell me, how did you start? What is your story?
Well, as I said at the Magnificent You conference, most people start off their talks with their tragic story about how they were born under a cabbage patch and basically struggled to get to where they were or are today. Mm-hmm. And I don't have that story. I was born rich. And, you know, it's interesting when people have said to me after they've heard me speak that story really caught them off guard because, as I said, most people start with their struggles. Mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, I didn't have struggles. I was rich, and we had many homes. We had homes, I'm in the U.S., and we had homes in Florida and Westchester County, which is right outside New York, and Vermont. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful home in Vermont on a lake. And I was picked up at school by a chauffeur, taken to my art class, my writing class, whatever I was doing after school. Mm-hmm. I had summers vacations in the Rockies, in Wyoming, in the Tetons, in Vermont in the summers, and then Europe, and then at boarding schools and nannies. And I mean, it was a rich kid's life, and it was very privileged, and I was very blessed. And when I went off to college, my mother told me I couldn't date the boy I was dating. I was 19 years old, so I married him. I mean, what else is someone supposed to do when you're told no? I don't do well with no. It's interesting. My mother knew that. You know, I was the one who always found a way around no. Mm. So I found a way around that no. And I married him, and then he went back to school. So then I supported him. And my mother was the U.S., the fitness authority. She basically created what is now fitness in the world. And she did this starting in the 40s, and in the 50s she was the one who started with Eisenhower. That's how long ago it was. Wow. The President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, and she always had for as long as I can remember. She started when I was, I guess, 4. Fitness school, and she taught, and it was huge. And so I thought, well, I know how to teach fitness, so I started a school in New York City. Mm. And when it started, people thought I was very weird because I was teaching toddlers. This is in 1965.
Yeah.
And they thought that was very strange, and that I was probably a little bit weird. And they poo-pooed it in the beginning until the school started calling me and saying, "What are you doing?" And when I would told them, they kind of said, "Well, that's, you know, you're teaching exercise. What is that?" Mm. I said, "No, that's all I'm doing." And but you must be doing something more. And actually, I was teaching children how to be successful while learning. And that was my purpose, was to have them be successful. So I never let a child stop practicing something until they got it right. And so they knew that learning was fun, that trying something new was fun, that they would always be successful. And so when they went to school at the age of 3, they were already educable, and they were already social, and they were already in New York City, it became a prerequisite if you wanted your child to go to a good nursery school.
Yeah.
You had to send them to me first. If my name was on the application, that application was looked at first, because people knew that child would be an easy child to deal with, easier, and that their parents started them early so that they would have a good relationship with both parent and child. And then it just grew. And I became very well known, and I did a lot of television. NBC gave me, actually at one point, my own television show. And I was the fitness reporter for the Today Show, and I wrote a lot of books with my ex-husband and did 18 national tours. And every tour used to bring me to Canada. And my favorite city was Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah, oh yeah, I love Vancouver. And I got to go, every time I wrote a book, I got to go to Vancouver. So I liked that. And my life just got richer. And so then I had what everybody thinks is very important. I had the house in East Hampton, Long Island, which is the she place to go now. And this was in the 70s. And I had the condo on the Upper West Side. And I had my son in private school and in camp. And I had the perfect life from the outside. And the inside, I was miserable. And I divorced my husband in 81, sold my business in 83. And I basically retired at the age of 40. Although I didn't know it was retirement, because I was only 40, I just thought that, okay, now what am I going to do? And I spent the next basically 6, 7 years looking to figure out that's when I discovered the mind and started doing body-mind technology. And that's when I met Louise Hay and Deepak and Dean and all these people. I met them. They were in my circle. And then Louise published my book, Meta Fitness, Your Thoughts Taking Shape, which was a body-mind book. Wow. And that's the book that got me on the Oprah Show. And Oprah loved my book. And I worked with her afterwards for a while. And but I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't have a coach and I didn't have a team. I just had me. And I didn't know how to handle it. And literally 8 months after I was on the Oprah Show and had all this huge fanfare, I was broke and ended up without a home.
Wow.
And that was very scary and very shaming. And I lost my self-confidence. I lost my self-respect. I felt so ashamed of myself, because here I was, this really big deal, and known all over. I mean, I taught in Europe, and I taught in Canada. I did teach in Vancouver. So I was teaching all over the world. Now all of a sudden I'm broke and I'm homeless, and that is an unbelievably humbling experience and exactly what I needed at the time. I am a very spiritual person, and so as I was going through this, I remember sitting in my kitchen, looking up at the ceiling and saying, "Thank you, God, you must really love me."
Wow.
To give me this experience, because it's going to change my life. And it did. And it was not easy. And it was very humbling, because there I was. I had been this famous person, this celebrity. I mean, people would see me on the street in New York City and say, "Hey, Suzy," because of the TV that I used to do in New York. Or I would go through, this happened to me, I was on my way to Barbados, and I was with my then boyfriend. And as I'm going through the checkout, it's now TSA, but it wasn't then. It was just your bags going through. And the person looked at my ticket and said, "Are you that Suzy Prudden?" And I said, "Yes." My boyfriend looked at me and was like, "Huh." It's very funny. I looked at it. It was one of those wonderful moments, like, yeah, I am. It used to happen to me, I'd make a phone call and talking to a stranger, like an American Express, and that my name would come up and, "Are you that Suzy Prudden?"
Oh, God.
And even today, I do have a client She's one of our authors because I have a publishing company. And I do have a client. She said, Suzy, I remember you from 30 years ago. I have your book, Meta Fitness.
Wow.
And it's interesting because, that's from 30 years ago. I haven't worn a leotard in over 25 years. And I do work with, now I'm a hypnotherapist and a mind coach, and that's the work that I do now, as well as being a publisher, which is that's really exciting, being a publisher, and also teaching people. Like when I came to Canada, I came to Vancouver and I spoke at Magnificent You, and I offered everybody there an opportunity to work with me. And it's really fun because I'm getting to know the women who I met just briefly at Magnificent You. And I'm working with many of them to move from where they are now. This is my favorite thing to do, where you are now to where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And it really starts with the way you think about your life, and you have to be proactive.
Absolutely.
You can't just say, okay, I'll just sit here and wait for my phone to ring. As I teach, the money's in the phone. And if you don't pick it up, you're not going to be able to reach the people that you want to reach. And some people get annoyed, and that's okay. I learned, this is a funny story, just happened. The woman who makes my calls to set up my appointments, her name is Carol. And she calls everybody who has let me know they want me to call them, giving me a card, and said, I want you to call. I always turn down the right corner of the card when someone says, please call me. Mm-hmm. If that corner is not turned down, I usually don't call that person because it means they haven't agreed to me calling them. Oh. So I always ask, and this is important because there's nothing more annoying, truly, than having someone call you that you don't want you to call you. I'll go to networking meetings and I'll get home and there'll be a whole slew of emails that I'm not interested because I didn't ask you to call me, or I didn't ask you to do this. You asked for my card, I gave it to you, but that doesn't mean I asked you to call me and sell me. Mm-hmm. So I only call people who actually say, yes, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So I learned yesterday from Carol, this was so wonderful, that she was at a seminar this last weekend and she met somebody who our office has their card from an event, and we have been calling since last March. Mm-hmm. And Carol is one of our authors, and she was holding one of her books. She was holding a book. And so this person said, oh, that company, they call me all the time. I never call them back. They even blamed me for calling me, saying if I want them to stop, to please let them know. And I just delete them every time they call me. And Carol said to her, it was so wonderful. She said, well, I'm the one that calls you.
Wow. It always surprises me when people turn down the opportunities that could change their lives. And
I know.
So often. And it comes from that place, perhaps either they don't feel worthy enough to do it or they feel they're above it. But you never know which opportunity is going to truly change your life.
Exactly. And the interesting thing to me about this particular situation, there's two things. Number one, I know the conference, and the person had to walk up to me to give me the card because I have a table there. I can't get their information without them giving it to me and me turning the thing. That was number one. The second thing, which just absolutely had me not hysterical, but definitely smiling, was the person's work in life is as a communications expert. Mm. So here is a communications expert not communicating with me that she really would rather that I didn't call, instead ignoring me, which is not communicating.
That's right. Yeah.
It's actually not communicating your wishes. So it was just an interesting moment. So I do have these things that happen, and it's like, oh, really? Interesting. But most of the time, people are interested in if I can give you tips that will move you from $100,000 to $300,000, or $5,000 to $50,000, or from having what you want in life, from not having what you want and being in struggle to having what you want in life. I mean, because I'm very gifted in that area, why not? I mean, the call that I offer people, the first call, there's no money exchange. It's free.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if I may just share what New York Times said about you, because I find it so amazing, this line about you. If Suzy is talking about it today, you can be sure the rest of the country will be talking about it tomorrow.
That was great. There was a time, this was in the 70s, there was a time when the Times would call me just to discuss things that were going on. For example, they called me, we had a big, in the 70s, we had a big gas hike, from 50 cents to over $1.
Yeah.
And everybody was freaking out, and we had to have every other day, if your license plate had an odd number at the end, you went on Tuesday, and if it had an even number, you went on Wednesdays. The lines were, now I'm in New York City, so the lines were around the blocks, and
wow.
It was I was at my home in East Hampton, and the Times called me. It was just so weird, and said, "How have you changed because of the gas strike, the gas prices?" And I'm thinking, why would somebody call me because of what I do for the gas? And that's how it was. They would call me for things like that. At the time, I was one of the beautiful people, whatever. It was quite heady, that's for sure. It was quite heady, being invited to parties at NBC and stuff like that. Very heady time. Mm. But again, that was then, and then I had that dip, which was frightening. And now I've worked my way back up, and now I teach about money and the way people look at money and view money and experience money. And the most important thing for people to know about money is it's innocent. Mm-hmm. Money's not doing anything to you. It's what you do with money.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I go through periods when I make a lot of money, and then sometimes I go through periods when I don't, and that always makes me nuts. I know exactly what it feels like to go, okay, how are we going to get through now? And I always tend to create a business. I mean, it's like, when did I create this current business? It'll be 2 years this coming January that I have my publishing company, and I love it. And I also now, and because of Magnificent You, I recreated a coaching program.
Nice.
Because most of the women that I spoke to were not interested in writing a book, but they were interested in having coaching so that they could move from where they are now to where they want to be. And so I started my coaching company again. And so now I have two companies. I have my coaching company, and I have when I say coaching, I use hypnosis, which is really fun or guided imagery, if you're afraid of the word hypnosis, because all of the places that people get stuck are old beliefs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and Suzy, would you tell us a little bit more about this relationship with money? I know you share great advice. By the way, I'm carrying $100 bill in my wallet since I heard your speech, and I've had some pretty good stuff happening to me. I was gifted $2,500 program just past week. I was gifted VIP tickets to another event it's November just yesterday. I'm like, wow, where are these things coming from?
Yeah, when you change your attitude about money in your life or opportunities happen. Mm-hmm. And I've always been able, I was talking to someone that I met last spring recently, and I wanted her to be a client at the time that I met her, but we just started talking once a month we just talked. Mm-hmm. And I saw how I could help her in her business, but her business partner didn't want to make the changes that I suggested. And, it's like, okay, I don't have attachment to that. I know that if you did this, you could have that.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't what they wanted. So it's fine. I kept talking to her, and I was explaining some of the things that I've got coming up. This is so funny. And I've got an event coming up in Atlanta where I'm sponsoring an event. It's very expensive for me to do that. I'm going to be featured on stage. There's about 300 speakers there. They all need books. I'm the only publisher that's going to be there. And it's going to cost me quite a bit of money to do this. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to take that extra money, which is like, it's way out there. And what am I going to do? And without skipping a beat, this is just like you getting the $2,500 gift. It's like, Suzy, would $10,000 help you? And I went, excuse me? She said, well, my husband and I have a 401k and we love supporting small businesses. And because you would pay us an interest, which is higher than we make from our 401k, would that help you? And I said, yes. She said, okay, send me your bank information. I'll send you an agreement. And 3 days later, I had an extra $10,000 in my account.
Wow.
This happened just 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So when you start to be open to magic, mm-hmm. It happens. Now, it's not about saying, I want. You've got to just put it out there and then let it go. Mm-hmm. I had no reason to know that this person did that. I never talked about it. It never came up. It just happened.
Mm-hmm. So what else can people do to open up to this money flow?
You have to change literally the way you think about it. And that's a practice. And you have to get rid of the yes, but, and get rid of the reasons. You can make up all kinds of reasons. Yes, but and then you make up a reason for why you're stuck. Mm-hmm. Yes, but I come from, yes, but this was told to me. Yes, but it's like, yes, but you make up reasons and then you get to be right. Mm-hmm. So the question for everybody that I ask is, what do you want to be right about? And changing your mind is not just saying, I'm rich, because your mind is going to argue with you. What I always do is I put in, it's now okay to be rich. So when you do that, when you put in before any affirmation, it's now okay, and then the affirmation, there's no argument. It's like the person who weighs 300 pounds who wants to weigh 120. And they're told that if they keep saying, I weigh 120, it'll happen. But when that person looks in the mirror and sees that they weigh 300 pounds, and they say to the mirror, I weigh 120, their mind goes, really? Mm. And who's that in the mirror? So there's an argument which makes the reality in that moment more real. So it's when the person who weighs 300 pounds wants to weigh 120, they need to say it's now okay to weigh 120. Wow. And sometimes that's not even strong. And when I say strong enough, they're not quite ready to hear that. So then what you do is say, I'm now willing for it to be okay. Mm. And then if that's still challenging, because sometimes, the mind is interesting. It'll go, really? I don't think so. I'm now willing to be willing. So you just got to go back to where the muscle is. That's what I used to teach in fitness. When I had somebody who was weak in an area, I didn't say, well, do it anyway. Their muscles weren't there. So I had to find where the muscle was, how strong it was. If you couldn't do a sit-up, I would have people roll down slowly. And then they get up using their elbows and arms. And I had one client one time who said, yes, but that's not a sit-up. And I said, well, can you do a sit-up? And she said, no. I said, so why would I ask you to do a sit-up if you can't? Mm. If you do what I'm telling you, which is roll down slowly with your knees bent, and then get up any old way, if you do that 4 times a day, 3 times or 4 times, whatever, within 3 weeks, you'll be doing a sit-up because your muscles will get strong. And guess what happened? Mm. It's the same thing with money. You don't start by saying, oh, I have $1 million, because most people who are making under $100,000 have no clue what $1 million even looks like.
That's right.
So if you're making $50,000 a year, a good step would be to go to 75 to 100. Mm-hmm. If you go to $1 million, your brain can't, it just can't compute. So if you can't compute it, it then nullifies it. So if you say it's now okay to make $60,000, Yes, but that's not enough. Okay, so are you making it now? No, but I want to make 100. Good. Start with 60, then 70, then 80. Well, that's going to take too long. Well, how long have you been waiting so far?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't, you say, I've been waiting forever. So, okay, then let's stop waiting and get to the next step. It's wonderful. A lot of my new clients will be charging very little for their services. And I say, well, you can't get there charging that. Mm-hmm. And they give me the yes, but they give me the reason. My clients can't afford it. I said, are you making the assumption, or do you know?
Yeah.
And so they don't know. They've had some people say, I can't afford that. And then they think, well, no, then. And so what they're doing is they're narrowing their audience. And if you charge $50 an hour and you want to make $1 million, that's a lot of hours. Mm-hmm. So I asked them if they're willing to raise their prices. And then I have to figure out, and this is tricky, what can I offer them to charge that's not going to cause them to freak out? So I used to say, because it's not a lot of money as far as I'm concerned, $150 an hour. And that for some people is way too much to charge. So if I've got somebody who's charging $50 an hour, I'm not going to say, can you jump to 150? Because there's nowhere their brain can compute that. So I'll say, well, would you be willing to charge $65 an hour? And sometimes that's even too much. So I'll go back to 60. But if I went to 75 an hour from 50, 9 times out of 10, that's too much of a jump. So I have clients who are at $150 an hour. I said, would you be willing to make it 198? And they'll think about it. And sometimes that's too much, but 175 is okay. Mm-hmm. You raise it increment by increment. But it makes a big difference in the way you think about yourself. I can't imagine charging $50 an hour.
That's right.
I mean, I used to charge when I first started, and this is 30 years ago, and I was brand new, I would charge $30 years ago, $25 an hour. Now, there were other people in my field who were charging 100, but I was brand new. I jumped very quickly to 90 within a couple of months. And I stayed there for too long. And then I went up to 125, and then I went up to 150, and now I'm 1,000. And probably at the new year, I'll be 1,500 an hour. And the reason I can charge that is because I know unequivocally that I can take a person who's making $50,000 and within a short time have them making 75. And after that, 100. Mm-hmm. And if they say, well, I don't want to do what you're telling me, then I say, well, don't. But then stay where you are. Mm-hmm. I'm not a coach that says, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to sit here and wait for my phone to ring and say, I'll say, is that working for you? And they'll say, no. And I'll say, so would you like to change that? And they say, no. And then, okay, don't change it. Mm-hmm. But if you want to make the money, you got to change it. You got to pick up the phone. The money's in the phone. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I said at Magnificent You is the money's in the phone. You have to follow up till they buy or die or tell you to stop. This woman that's upset with me, she said to Carol, I will never work with Suzy Prudden because she calls me all the time. Well, you asked me to. And obviously, if you won't work for me, you're not my right client. And that's another thing that people have to know. Sometimes I spoke to somebody yesterday, and after 15 minutes, I knew they were not my client. And I said, I don't think you need me. Mm-hmm. And the client said, you're right. She wanted a financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. She wanted me to tell her how to get out of debt. I don't do that. Mm-hmm. That's not, there are people who are trained to do that. I'm not one of them. I'm a mind expert. I can help you rethink your life, and in rethinking your life, change it.
So when we talk about mindset and money, why is, let's say you suggested to have $100 bill in your wallet?
Because it's fun.
It's fun, but what does it change inside of us? How is it attractive?
Well, it's interesting because remember I talked about, I have a $100 bill in my book, I don't use it as a bookmark. I use it as a surprise. So every time I find it, I go, oh, I have $100, and then I hide it from myself again, and then I forget about it. And then all of a sudden I find it again, and it's just a game.
Yeah.
Just a game. And so the keeping $100 in your wallet, it's just a game. Because when I go through my wallet looking for a 20 or looking for a 5 or looking for a single, and I come across my $100 bill, it's like, oh, it feels good.
And that's exactly right. After I heard you talking, I actually hid one of the $20 bills in one of my drawers, and I forgot about it. And then each time I would go in that drawer, oh, look, there's money. And it's really a good feeling. It's like, oh, look at that, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to check in with you is I hear so many people saying, well, it's not the money that's bad, but it's the love of the money. And I thought, well, you know what? Why don't we just say it? I love money. Why would we have to hide it? Why do we have to pretend we don't really love money? Why not? It's great to have money. Look what you can do with it.
Yeah, okay. So the meme is, it's not good to love money. Okay. So do you think that very wealthy people go around saying that?
I don't think so.
No. So why not be like a wealthy person and have money? You can give more of it away. You can do more good with it. You can make a difference in other people's lives with money that you can't without it. And you don't have to be a horrible person. There are some really awful people that have a lot of money, but they would be just as awful if they didn't. They're just that kind of a person.
That's right.
So if a really wonderful person makes a lot of money, they just get to do more wonderful things for themselves, for their family, for their friends, and for people they don't even know. Wealthy people have a tendency to give more to charity. They start foundations. They make a difference in the world because they have money. Mark Victor Hansen, when he spoke one time, I've known him for God since '86, and he's a co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. That I want to create 1,000 millionaires. I want to teach people. I want to teach at least 1,000 people to become millionaires, because if they give, that's millionaires making at least $1 million a year. If they tithe 10% of their money, that's $100,000 a year that they're giving away to somebody in need.
Yes.
And that's what I think it's for. It's for making myself comfortable, because it's certainly more comfortable to have money than not. It makes me comfortable. I'm able to give more, and I'm able to make a bigger difference.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And flying first class is nice.
Yes, I am absolutely sure it is. And you know what? What else would be one nugget, just before we leave this conversation, what would be one nugget that you can give to people about money?
I think it's what I said earlier, money's innocent. It's the way it's your stuff that you put on it. And when you start changing the way you think about money, and you know, you have found, since you've heard me speak, that you're having fun with it. And that things are happening that are showing up, like you were gifted a program, the $2,500 program, and then you said something else just happened.
VIP ticket.
The VIP ticket. So these things are happening. Money is an entity. Money is, it's very, we have to, when you love money, money shows up. When you hate money, money doesn't. That's simple. It's like, if I like someone, I want to be in their company, and they want to be in my company. But if I don't like someone, I don't want to be in their company, and they probably don't want to be in mine. So money's the same. It shows up where it's liked.
Yes.
And you can be a good person or a lousy person. It doesn't matter. Money doesn't discriminate. We do. So that's really what it is. So that's that's an important nugget. Money doesn't discriminate. It'll show up wherever it's wanted, not necessarily wherever it's needed. You know, if you have a needy person, it's like, I don't like that. That's needy. That's like a wet cocker spaniel wanting to rub its body against you to get warm. I said, oh, God, I don't want you. You smell. And so, you know, money's the same. It doesn't, if you like it, it shows up. And money is a great teacher. And that's important. Money will teach you how to pay attention to your life. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have it, it's telling you something. And it's telling you, what do you have to do to get out of your way? Because money is what makes the world go round.
Absolutely. And I think there's also respect for money. I was just thinking yesterday how many people, let's say they even pay for my workshop, they don't show up and they've just lost money.
Yeah.
And I think, well, that is so disrespectful. If I pay for something, I'm going to make sure I show up because I respect the money that I invest in myself. And I'm sure you have similar experiences as well with your clients or with some people that.
Yeah, when I ran my weight loss center in Beverly Hills, we were very expensive. It was a hypnosis center and people came to lose weight and we were very successful. And people would pay us $3,000, $4,000 for a program and come once. Mm-hmm. And I would look at their chart and I would, let's call this person and see if we can get them in here. Gone. I have done that. So it's not like, I mean, I've paid I remember paying $2,000 for a program and going once and I was mortified by the program. So I never went back. But, and I didn't ask for my money back. That's another thing that I find very interesting is when people change their mind about something. Like one of my authors just called me and said, I've decided to work with a different coach and I want my money back so I can work with them. And I said, no. Mm-hmm. You know, why would I pay for your new coach?
Yes.
Yes, but no. It seriously wouldn't occur to me to pay a coach and then not be able, not finish the program and say, well, I can't finish the program, or I can't take your program and want my money back. Wouldn't occur to me to do that because in good faith, they sold me the program. Mm-hmm. It's my job to show up.
Yes.
It's not their job to give me back my money because I didn't show up. Mm-hmm. It's my job to show up. And as Harv Eker says, the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Yes.
And so when I look at my life and how I behave in life, and money is a great teacher because if I get stupid with money, and this is important for those of you who are listening, if you get stupid with money, if I get stupid with money, it stops showing up. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, okay, I got to reorient myself. It's not money's fault. It's mine. Mm-hmm. Everything is here. Mm-hmm. Everything you do comes from you.
Absolutely.
And I always tell people, because I'm polarizing. People either really like me or they really don't. Mm-hmm. And it's got nothing to do with me.
Of course not. Yes.
And when I say that to audiences, the ones that don't like me get very upset. It's like, hey, you know, it's your problem, not mine.
I think you're very likable. I do like you. So.
I kind of like myself. It's a good thing because I live with me. My cat's like
That's a really good thing. Absolutely, I agree. Oh, Suzy, this was so much fun talking to you. It's such a pleasure to having you here. Tell me, where can our listeners find more about you?
Well, there's two ways, and it's very, very easy. You can go online to my publishing company, mm-hmm. www.itty.publishing.com. And you'll see there, if you go online and look at that I do publish amazing short books that are that make a difference. We are the new dummies. The difference between Itty Bitty and dummies. Dummies are 350 pages that you have to read with a yellow highlighter.
Mhm.
We are the yellow highlights at Itty Bitty. And
I love this slogan. You are the yellow highlighter. I'll
yeah,
just
it's true, and it's fun, and we run bestseller campaigns, and we really support our authors. So anybody who's listening, watching, who has an idea for a book, you can go online and you can say, yeah, let's fill it out, and your name and your number, and I'll call you. And the other way is you can call me directly.
Mhm.
I actually, if I don't answer my phone, I will call you back.
Okay.
And my number is 310 640-8885. It is a cell phone, so you can text me, 310-640-8885. And I'd like to offer any one of your listeners an opportunity to have a session with me to let me see if there's a way that if you want to work with me and I can work with you and help you make more money or help you publish your book. That's what I do, and I love it. Just so that you know, audience, I am 73 years old. And my business partner is my sister. She's 77. So life does not end when you're 65. And you can have an incredible career basically until you die.
Mm-hmm.
And why stop? I mean, if nothing's stopping you, don't stop.
That's right. I totally agree with you. I was asked one time by a financial planner, so what age do you want to retire at? And I'm like, I really don't want to. I love what I'm doing. And well, you have to tell me the number. I said, I can't. That's not in my mind.
It's not in your reality.
Yeah.
It's not in my reality. And some people, that's all they can think about. But usually it's people who are in a job.
Yes.
They don't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I can totally understand, but instead I work with a lot of people who've retired from corporate and are now wanting to do something different, but they have the corporate mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to shift their mind in order to be able to become an entrepreneur. Yeah. Now, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I mean, I started in 1965, and that's a while ago. And that's 52 years ago that I started my first company. And I've been building companies, and sometimes I'm very successful and sometimes I'm not. I prefer success.
That's right. We all do. Suzy, thank you so much for being here. It was really a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back again.
I accept.
Thank you.
That's another nugget. Just say yes and figure it out.
That's right. We'll figure it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.